Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. One thing that people always ask me and they always look to me at, and a lot of times people just call up, they've never trained jiu-jitsu before and they want to know, should they do private lessons, can they do private lessons? My name is Bill Jones, I'm the head instructor of top level martial arts in beautiful downtown Cuyahoga Falls, Black Belt under Master Pedro Sauer, and you're watching Professor's Corner. Private lessons. So should beginners do private lessons? There's a couple different things I want to talk about with this. Private lessons are very expensive, especially in jiu-jitsu. And you know, even in other martial arts, they're very expensive. And I think that as a beginner, you're better served going to group classes. That's as baseline as I can say it. The only time I wouldn't do that is if you have no other option. There's no group classes offered when you can train. So that would make sense to me to do private lessons. Why do I say that? Private lessons, one, should be designed to answer questions that you have. And as a beginner, you're not going to be asking the right questions. It's that simple. You're going to be wanting techniques and seeing moves. And I don't think that private lessons are the best place to do that. I think that you can do that just fine in classes just by asking questions in your class and getting the answers there. So I usually try to steer beginners, white belts, away from private lessons. I don't think that that's a very valuable thing for you, and I think in the end it's wasting a lot of your money that you could be better spent toward regular training. So that's not going to be a very popular answer. A lot of places depend on private lessons, and a lot of instructors depend on private lessons. So I'm going to make an even less popular thing to say. I don't think private lessons should be taught by anyone less than a high brown belt or a black belt. Let me be very clear about this. I'm talking about for adults. For kids, very different. The questions most kids are going to come up with are very basic, and running a kid's private lesson is not too dissimilar from just running a kid's class. So for that level, I think that kids could be learning from, you know, blue belts and purple belts just fine. So why do I think that only brown belts and black belts should be teaching private lessons? Well, let's start with what the purpose of a private lesson is. The purpose of a private lesson is to disseminate to you some techniques that work for you. It's about your game. A full class is about disseminating jiu-jitsu knowledge to a group of people in a very generic format, right? So I'm going to teach the most high-level format that's going to work for most people over time. So let's say that you have a certain disability, wrists won't bend, or I don't know, whatever it is with you, that you can't make certain techniques work. That's where private lessons come in. Say, hey, coach, with my wrist, I can't bend it, or I can't lift my shoulder above here. What are some options I have other than what you showed in class? That's where a private lesson should be used. And I'm sorry, blue belts, white belts especially. White belts shouldn't be teaching anything. Blue belts and purple belts are generally still working on their own game. And again, I'm generalizing here. Using a standardized relative time scale for the belt system. If you're a purple belt who's been training for like 25 years and you just never got ranked up, completely different situation, right? I'm being very general here. But blue belts certainly have no clue how to make other people do different moves. They're still learning on what works for them. They're still working on the basic mechanics of jiu-jitsu. So, and you don't need to get a private lesson to learn that. You should come to regular classes. And people will be like, oh, I can't go to regular classes because I'm scared, or at some point you're going to have to step out of that zone if you want to get good at jiu-jitsu. I really don't think you can do private lessons from white belt all the way to black belt in jiu-jitsu. Like, you're not going to be good. You're just not. So you really shouldn't do that. Private lessons are meant to go along with your training, not to they're not supposed to be the sole source of training. I think that you take what you learn from private lessons, you take it into class, you drill it on different people, you roll with different people, and see how you can make it work. That's the point of a private lesson. But a lot of people try to just make all their training private lessons, and I think that you are, one, wasting your money, and two, the person who's doing it is also wasting your money, and they probably know it. So if you're training with a blue belt or a purple belt in private lessons, I think in a lot of ways you're wasting your time. That's not going to be a popular response. People don't want to hear that. With that said, that's not saying that blue belts and purple belts can't teach classes. Classes are taught on a very high level generic frame, generally based on, like, okay, here's how you do an arm bar, and they show a basic variation of the arm bar and maybe a setup they use. That's what classes are designed to be. Private lessons are designed to be for you. So if you're, say, a 130 pound athletic person, you just happen to be smaller, a private lesson should be about how you can use jiu-jitsu for you, rather than, like, I'm a 250 pound guy. If I came to you and I was working with you, I shouldn't be showing you moves like, oh yeah, just sprawl right out of this. Like, that might never work for you. But as a black belt who's been training for a long time, I understand jiu-jitsu and mechanics well enough that I can say, okay, you're a smaller guy, this option isn't going to work for you, but here's an option that will. And I think that that's what a lot of people miss when they do private lessons or teach private lessons or take private lessons, and they end up wasting a lot of time and money on private lessons doing that. So for the beginner, I don't think you should be doing private lessons at all unless, and beginner, I would say first 6 months. So let's be real clear there. Unless you have no other option. You literally can't make it to any classes, and you only are willing to train at that place, because most jiu-jitsu schools have like morning options and all kinds of options. If you're an advanced player, you know, you start to get, you know, purple belt, brown belt, black belt, you should definitely be doing private lessons regularly. I think that's where the mistake is purple belts and brown belts and black belts a lot of times think, oh, well, I know my game, so I'm not going to do private lessons anymore. I think you should be doing them more than anybody. And more specifically, you should be looking for specific people to do them with. So, for example, I do my private lessons with people right now in the stage I'm at in my development, with people who are really good with leg locks, because I want to get better at that part of the game. I've developed a pretty darn good straight ankle lock. I'm starting to develop good transitions into the positions. I got beat by a leg lock in my most recent competition. I needed to understand that. And so I find the high-level guys in those games. Maybe for you, it's people who are great at sweeps or great at arm bars, but there should be something very specific and a real reason you're doing it. And I think to that end that training with just anybody as an advanced player is not really a smart idea. You should train with people who are going to give you specific things. Train with specialists. And that's really, I guess, my opinion on private lessons. One, beginners don't need them. First 6 months, you don't need them. You don't have the right questions to ask. Once you're at that 6-month level or beyond, I think it's good to do it. Two, no one under the rank of brown belt should be teaching them. And why do I say brown belt? To me, a brown belt and a black belt are pretty much the same. A brown belt might just have a larger sphere of moves that they use, but they're very experienced and know what they're doing. They understand that not all moves are for everybody. And maybe that's another thing I should put on there as a qualifier, is sometimes there are instructors who are just not good instructors, and they think there's only one way to do everything. If that's the kind of person you're working with, then you should not be doing private lessons with them. They aren't good enough as an instructor. They don't understand that, you know, well, I've got short limbs. I can't reach that. I can't do it that way. So that's something that a good instructor will be able to work around and give you mechanics to compensate for, as opposed to just saying, well, do it anyway, because that's definitely not the answer. All right, guys, Gi giveaway for the month of November. I'm super excited. Our winner was Rodolfo Sapp, Rodolfo Sapp, S-A-P-P. If you are Rodolfo Sapp, hit me up on the back end of the channel. I will get the gi sent out to you. It is a deferma kimono gi. Congratulations. For everyone else, don't forget to comment and subscribe, because as long as you're a subscriber and a commenter on the videos throughout the month of December, at the end of December, I'll send out another gi. I'm super excited to do it and super happy to do it. So good job, guys. Stay tuned to the video. I'm going to give you 5 simple tips that are going to help you with a great move here, and I'll talk to you later. Have a good one. Alright guys, so today we're talking about escaping side control. It's the #1 thing I hear people ask anytime I've gone to a seminar over the last 15 years. Everybody wants to know how to escape side control. So here's 5 tips to help improve your side control escape. This is Dustin. He's going to be helping me out today. So let's first talk about when you should start escaping side control. So tip number 1 is start escaping side control early. I think the best reference I can think of is if you imagine yourself as a headlight, like a motorcycle headlight, like you're this beam of light, right? And it kind of goes out in a cone. Anytime my partner starts getting outside that cone, I'm in side control escape mode. All right. Now, obviously, if this is the kind of distance we're dealing with, I just turn. But if now we're talking about maybe passing the guard, so he does something to pass. Right now, like my cone is, he's starting to come outside of it. So as he starts to do those kinds of things, I need to start intercepting things early. All right. And I think that's the biggest problem is that you guys want to try to escape when you're already, go ahead, come to side control. When you're already like right here, super tight, they're crushing your face. You're really late. So that's number 1 is start your escapes early, and I think that you'll find that you have a higher percentage of escape. So let's move on from there. Let's say we do mess up, he is tight. The first thing I want to talk about are small movements, little things that make a difference on a greater scale. So a lot of times people are trying to get this arm because they have the underhook, right? So sometimes I'll just take my hand and I'll go like this and I'll just hang it on the back of his head. And that kind of makes it hard for him to get it. You know what I mean? He's uncomfortable. And notice that when he moved, go ahead, do that again. Look, it makes me move. Now I have room to come inside his hip with my elbow. All right? So these small movements, just little head movements, things like that, are going to buy you space. And space is a valuable commodity when you're trying to escape side control. All right? So that's the first thing, is try to find little itty-bitty movements. And they're always going to be small, little adjustments that help get you a little bit of space. All right, number 2, I want to fight for the underhook. I know that a lot of people come in here and frame on the face, on the neck and cup here, and that's okay, it's not bad, but the issue is he still controls my elbow, and if he can put weight to my elbow, he can control my rotation, and so that's an issue. So yeah, I've seen this kind of stuff, and I think it's great, but I think it's better to have an underhook, and I'll show you why. So if I got to here, I would frame and then immediately try to get an underhook. All right. Going back to the idea of small movements, watch this here with the underhook. I don't put my hand like this. I open it and widen my elbow. That immediately kills his ability to keep his arm close to his body and makes him uncomfortable. Do you like that, Dustin?
Nope.
And it's hard for him to break. It also allows me now to rotate to my side. All right. So a couple little details that happened there. You know, we got our frame. However we fight to get our underhook, boom, we get it in there. And now I try to rotate my hand open so that my elbow flares a little bit, and that breaks his posture and his strength. This other arm is maintaining control of his hip. And now as I shrimp, I bring my leg in low. I'll show you why in a second. So detail number 3 is that I bring my leg in low. I don't stick it in here. Okay, I see a lot of times people are just trying to get anything they can and they stick their leg in here. All right, and I think you get away with stuff when you do that. I'll show you why in a moment. I bring it in low and I drive his leg. Now I can trap. All right, notice I have not gone to the half guard. This foot is still out. Boom, I trap and I lock here. This prevents him from quickly knee slicing back through. A lot of times I see people come in and they try to go straight to guard, and then he slides, just hip slides, and he's out. Okay? So I come in, boom, trap, and I'm pinching between my calf and my shin. Slide again. He can't. And look, all he does is open up a ton of space, and I'm out. Okay? So there's a bunch of details to get out. I did want to show you, we'll call it a bonus detail, what happens and why I'm not a fan of bringing that leg in high like that. So a lot of times people will slide their knee in real high, boom, step up. We've already begun the process of winning the match. So really be careful of where you put your foot in there. Especially today, a lot of people are really keen on leg locks, and you got to know these things exist. All right, guys, that's 5 tiny details on the side control escape. Hope they helped.